All right, before we start this, I want to say that I just recorded this whole damn video, and in it, as usual, I didn't get to the list until very deep into it. I've made lists in the past. People complain like, oh my God, this guy doesn't start talking about his list until 10, 15 minutes in, whatever. Look in the description below. I will timestamp the time where I start the top 25. I do a lot of honorable mentions. I do television series. I do my what I didn't consider horror in top 12. So there's a lot of talking beforehand before I get to the top 25. So if you're not interested in any of that, go ahead and click in the description below. You'll find the time where I actually get to the top 25. But man, this has been such a great year for horror that I could not talk about tons of stuff. And every movie gets a little time. So it is a long video, but I felt like it was justified. Also, I want to say that I went and I edited my Patreon. I added tiers. So if you're someone who is interested in my Patreon, if you want to become a patron, go ahead and click on the link below for my Patreon. I have been slacking on that. I started it in the past. I didn't have tier levels. I apologize. Anyone who is a patron, if you qualify for any of the tier levels and you have been giving in the past, don't worry. I will give you whatever those tier levels are, and you can get the benefits of that. But I do have benefits now on my Patreon. So go ahead, click below. I have a $1, a $5, a 10, a 25, and a 50. So I have a bunch of different incentives there. Check them out. Other than that, let's get to the list. All right. So 2018 comes to a close, and man, was this one of the greatest years for horror ever, in my opinion. I saw so many awesome flicks this year. All in total, I watched 150 on the nose 2018 horror films, and I liked or loved the majority of them. From a quantity standpoint, 2018 is about as good as it's gonna get. So I think that we had a stellar year, and I look forward to 2019. The two 2019 horror flicks that I've watched so far, which was Escape Room and Life Changer, I enjoyed both of them very much. So we're off to a good start in 2019. Let's hope that it keeps up. So few things I want to knock out of the way first before I get into my top 25 of 2018, which is a very hard list to make. I feel like 25 is one of the hardest things. I feel like 25 is harder than 1, because you're essentially saying wherever your list ends, whether it's a top 10, a top 20, a top 25, whatever that last one is, that's the last spot. And that's the one that you're saying, okay, I watched 150. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying that this movie is better than 125 other films that can't make this last spot. So that one's the hardest one to make. And it really gave me some fits. But I feel confident with my list. Now, I will say on my list, and I think we can all understand this from people who make lists like me on this, I feel like the majority of these are first-time watches. And so, you never know how things are going to age. There's movies on here that I might love way more in the future, and there's movies on here I might love way less that wouldn't even make the top 25 in multiple viewings in the future. It's funny how that happens. But for right now, having only seen the majority of these once, I saw a few of them twice, but having only seen them once, obviously I'm hoping for some of them go drastically up, because there's some disappointments that still made the list that I hope on subsequent viewings that I'll be like, yes, all right, now I get it. I would have put this at number 2 or 1 or whatever. I hope that happens, but for right now, this list is set in stone on their first viewings. Now, to talk about a few films that did not make the list because I just couldn't classify them horror, even though I was seeing them on horror lists, and I'm obviously expecting there to be a couple movies that did make my list for people to contend that those aren't horror movies, but we all have our different interpretation of what horror actually is. So I will say that probably the biggest one that made a lot of people's lists that I just couldn't say it was horror enough for me was the film Upgrade. Loved it. would have made my top 10. I just thought it was a fantastic action sci-fi. Is there horror elements? Yes. But just not enough. And there will be one film on my list that people will be like, well, if you counted this, why can't you count that? I don't know. Okay, that's really best I got. I don't know. I felt like Upgrade just wasn't horror enough. There wasn't enough horror elements, but man, it's fantastic. The next is The Night Comes for Us. This would have been like top 3. I loved this movie. I'm a huge fan of martial arts films, The Raid specifically, which is what this feels the most like. If you're a fan of The Raid, you didn't see The Night Comes for Us. It's on Netflix. It's like The Raid 3. Since we're probably never getting The Raid 3, there you go. It's the closest you're ever going to get. And it was excellent. But people put this on their list, and I feel like they're just inserting that. Yes, there's a lot of gore and kills and this and that, but that doesn't make it horror. So that one didn't make my list, but I did love it. Next up, we have Searching, which is just a thriller to me. An excellent thriller, and would have made my top 10. I thought it was freaking emotional, heartbreaking at times. So well done. It's completely on a computer screen, much like something like Unfriended or The Den. But it was probably the smartest use of that gimmick. So for some reason you missed Searching, absolutely watch it. It's excellent. And I can't say enough good about it. But those are like the 3 that I saw on horror lists that I just could not put on here. Now, getting into some honorable mentions before I get to the list, I'm going to have to give some love to some of these films because these were ones that were like, I want to put these on the list, but I just feel like there's enough wrong in them to be like, I can't put them on a top list. But I thought there was enough right on them that I had to mention them. First up would be Butterfly Kisses. Now, all the films I'm going to be talking about here, I have reviewed on my channel. So if any of them sound interesting to you, obviously I'm not going to spend too much time. I've already spent almost 6 minutes before I even get to my list, which I know some people will complain about. I've made lists in the past, and they're like, fucking dude talks for 20 minutes before he even gets to his list. Okay, fine. I'll put a timestamp where the list starts. Oh, Lord. Anyway, Butterfly Kisses. Found footage, faux documentary, but a very clever use of the faux documentary, because this kind of plays with conventions here in the found footage faux documentary subgenre and makes the film itself question itself within the film. And I thought that the urban legend, the Peeping Tom, was creepy and a great idea. And the way that it's done in this film, I thought it was great. One of the ones that I really wish could have made the list, but I felt like there was just 25 films that just were a little better. Obviously, that's going to be the truth of all of these. Next up, we have Monster Party. This is just such a fun flick. A few kids go to rob this super rich place. They pose there as like butlers, and then they realize that they're not the worst people in the building. This has some great gore, some great kills, some fun moments, and one of my favorite endings of a film this year. Absolutely ridiculous, over the top, nonsensical for sure, but that being said, I didn't care. I loved it. And when we were doing our awards, we did a bunch of awards in my podcast where we talked about all of these films. I did my top 25, so spoilers for that in here. I'm going to be doing the same top 25 list, but if you want to see me talk a little more in depth and get more people's lists, you can go to the podcast. I'll link that as well below. But I gave the award to this film for my favorite final person. What happens here at the end, I won't say, obviously. I don't want to give any spoilers, but man, I just thought the way this ended and the person and all that was great. Next up, we have The Night Eats the World, and this is a foreign zombie flick. A lot of great zombie movies this year. The zombie subgenre has been revitalized by clever directors, stories, whatnot. I saw a lot of really good zombie movies that I was like, wow, they're taking a subgenre that I thought was overplayed, done, and dead, pun intended, and revitalized it or revived it. They've come up with so many clever, new, interesting takes on the zombie, and this is another one. It's more of an allegory for breakups, in my opinion. I did do a spoiler discussion on this, giving my full thoughts of it, but it's mostly a character study of sorts because it's all one guy for like 99% of the movie. And it really relied heavily on that guy to make this interesting, a Castaway or something where it's just one guy carrying a film, and I thought the guy did a great job. So it's a slower paced one because he's by himself and he's just locked up in a house and he barely interacts with zombies much outside. So it's not a thrill a minute by any means, but I really thought it was a cool, unique little twist on it. And as I said, the allegory is strong. Next up, a movie that a lot of people didn't like, and there will be a few of those on here because you know me. But I really enjoyed this, and I went into this with super low expectations because everyone was hating on it. I love Scout Taylor Compton, so she was immediately a draw for me. But as I said, after I saw the negatives, I was like, I don't know. And that is Feral. I thought this was a fun flick. It's zombie-esque and more of kind of like a rabies. Reminds me of something like I Drink Your Blood, but done much more modernly and not on purpose. And I don't know, I dug it. I thought it was a cool flick. One of the things that I really liked about the movie is I didn't question character decisions. That's huge for me. I thought that the characters in this, for the most part, made good decisions. It was just one of those situations where, it was going against them so hard. No matter what kind of decisions they made, it wasn't going to go well for them. So I really liked that about it. Not a fantastic movie by any means, but nowhere near as bad as people are saying it is. Another one that people hated, and I have to say that a lot of this comes from their hatred for Topher Grace, which I'm not a Topher Grace hater, so I'm not really one of those people, but I really enjoyed the hell out of this movie, and that was Delirium. I will say, though, that I'm a big Callan Mulvey fan. He's one of my favorite unknown actors that appears here and there, and every time I see him, I get really excited, and I probably like a movie more than I should, but I dug this movie a good amount. A kid who's holed up in the house after being released from a mental institution, and he has to go so many days without an incident, otherwise he's going to be put back in, and, stuff starts to happen, and he's questioning his sanity, and I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know why people hate it so much, but whatever. Next up, we have a Shudder exclusive. Lot of great Shudder exclusives. If you don't have Shudder, get it, man. It's so worth it. There's so many great exclusives where you can only get it on their channel. I know you know what exclusive means, but I'm just saying there is a point. Even if you're that person who owns every fucking thing like I do, and looks on Shudder and is like, well, I already own all these movies. What do I need it for? It's $5 a month, and they have great exclusives. So I think that these are worth them. There's a bunch that made my top 25 and some of my honorable mentions. This is one of them. And while the acting in this movie is not good in the slightest, the gore and the ending and all that is badass, and that is downrange. This movie is graphic. It's shocking at times, and that ending, man, is brutal. So high points for that alone. I had to give it some love. Go get Shudder, please. Next up, we have a random Redbox rental that I threw on here, and the only reason I got it was because I watched the trailer, and there was some really cool, interesting FX, practical creature FX, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I got to check this movie out. I really enjoyed it. Yes, it's lower budget. There's some shoddy acting, and it looks cheap, but it's made, and this movie is The Terror of Hallows Eve. Sorry, I thought I said the title, and then I remembered I didn't. The Terror of Hallows Eve. And this kind of reminded me, not so much in the story, but in like the making of, it reminded me something of like a Wishmaster, because the guy who made this is a special effects guy, and he was showcasing his practical and special effects in the movie. And while there are not a ton of them, because it is pretty low budget, so they have to keep them minimalistic, I thought the times where they were in there were really cool, and I loved the ideas because there's a bunch of bullies in this movie, and the kid's getting back at him, and he uses this doll to wish for whatever, and then these kids are getting paid back, and they're all kind of put into their own little mini universes to be punished in. And I thought each one of them was crafty and clever and cool, so I just liked all the different settings. Next up, we have a foreign flick that I watched like right before I recorded, so it was just last minute thing. I thought it was a beautiful film. It has horror elements, and essentially at the end of the day, it's a werewolf movie, kind of, but I really wouldn't go into it expecting werewolf movies or much of a horror movie at all, but I have to mention it because it's got some horror in it. I thought it was a really pretty, beautiful romance drama kind of film, and that was Good Manners. And it's a cool flick. It's just not going to be for everyone. Horror hounds and people who are gore fanatics and just don't care about plot or develop, character development, just skip this kind of stuff. But if you're into more dramatic pieces with, a nanny comes in to help with this woman who's pregnant. They kind of have a little romance going on. She's pregnant. But the pregnant girl starts acting crazy and doing crazy shit outside of the house, and she's following her around. I don't want to get too into spoilers with it, but I'm pretty sure you can guess what's going on with the pregnant girl since I kind of already blew that, but you can see that on the poster, so I don't think I'm blowing anything too hard. Next up, we got a movie that's about an hour long. It's on Amazon Prime. It's in black and white, and it is called The Forest of Lost Souls. This was just such an interesting story in the first 20 or 30 minutes, and I thought it was going to go in a completely different direction, almost so much so that I would love to steal the idea of what I thought was going to happen and make it into a movie, because I think it would be a really cool flick. But that all being said, I still really enjoyed where it went. I just didn't see it going in that direction. It's a guy, he goes to this forest that's famous for a bunch of people killing themselves. No, not the one from the Forest movie with Natalie Dormer, right? I think is who was in that movie. It's not the same forest, a different one. But yeah, people go out there to kill themselves. This guy goes out there to kill himself. He meets this girl who's out there to kill herself, and then they get into a little dialogue with each other, and she's trying to figure out why he's trying to kill himself. She's been there multiple times to kill herself, but has never pulled the trigger. And they talk about why and what, and that was really interesting. As I said, it's only an hour long, it's black and white, might not be something, it's kind of art housey, but it does take a turn that I wasn't expecting, and I really ended up enjoying it. Really enjoyed the performance from the leads here. Cool flick. No one saw it. So I had to mention it. These are hidden gems. These are my hidden gems, obviously, because they didn't make the list. And there's hidden gems also in my top 25. But I'll mention them when we get there, which I'm almost there. And we have The Cured, which was an Ellen Page zombie flick, but much more of a drama. Not a lot of zombie action, but this is a post-apocalyptic world where the zombie virus has been cured for the most part. There's still people out there who are uncurable, and they bring these people back into society, but here's the twist, and this is what makes the movie amazing, and this is where I wish that this would have been explored in a television series, because this is just, as a film, it's too small. The idea is huge, but the film is too small to try to address all of the story that could have taken place here. So I hope they remake this into a television series and really explore it more. And the twist is that the people who were zombies, because they're not dead, they're just kind of like, the rage virus and 28 Days Later or something, they remember everything that they did. So when they are cured, they come out of it, but they remember if they killed their family, if they killed anybody, they remember. And that's fucked up. Do you imagine having to remember that you brutalized your kids or your wife or whatever, or anybody? Awful, just awful. So I thought that was an amazing spin on the subgenre, and I would love to see it explored more. And then television series, of course. Haunting of Hill House is excellent, and Channel Zero, The Dream Door, wasn't my favorite season of Channel Zero, but it was a good damn season. Apocalypse, American Horror Story, let me down a little in that last episode. It wasn't terrible, but I was really into the first 6 or 7 episodes, and then it kind of dropped off a little towards the end, but still a pretty good season all around. I look forward to the next season. And Walking Dead, man, holy shit, has that been a great season after the really bad season 8. I'm not a Walking Dead hater, but season 9, the first half, was great. The new showrunner, thank you. You've done a great job. I'm fully excited again. I can't wait for February 10th for this new freaking episode. It's so exciting to be excited for a Walking Dead episode again, because season 8, I was just like, oh, I don't want to watch another one. I just don't want to do it. But I pushed myself. I got through it. Season 9 started strong. It stayed strong. It ended strong. And I'm really excited to see where the season goes here in February. All right, guys. We are at the top 25. I know I took forever, but hey, whatever. So, starting at number 25, we have Fractured. Now, this is a film that is on Amazon Prime, and it was recommended to me by a friend of mine. This is the film that I was watching, and about 20-30 minutes in, I was actually considering turning it off. I was bored. I was like, I don't know. I'm not really feeling this. I didn't hate it, but it was just like, if this is how it's going to go, then I don't know. This is too boring for me. And then, boom, something happened, put me right back in it. And from that moment on, I just ended up loving the first 30 minutes because of it. So, total turnaround. My biggest turnaround film for the year. Because I was like half, and I was like, it's pretty short. I think it's only like 80 minutes long. It's on Prime. I definitely recommend it. If you're like 20 minutes in and you're bored, you're not alone. Stick it out. I think that the last half here really saves the film, and so much so that it made my list, just because I was so surprised. I had to put it on as my biggest turnaround surprise, and it had to make the list because of that. Really liked it. Hidden gem. No one saw it, but I think it's great. Number 24, a sequel to a film that I wasn't crazy about, albeit everybody being freaking crazy about it. I thought it had the best trailer. The original. I thought the original had the best trailer I had ever seen for a horror film, so I was hyped through the roof. Saw it, wasn't big on it. Then they got a sequel 10 years later, and that is The Strangers Prey at Night. Admittedly, I'm not crazy about the first, third or so, but I love the last act of this movie so much so that it made my list. I like it. I don't dislike the first half or so, but it's okay, this is fine. It's tropey. It sets up. It goes through the motions. A lot of people bitch about this character, the main girl here, and say that she's awful. She's a bitch, this and that. She's just a normal teen. If you have a teenage daughter, then you'll understand this character. If you don't, then you're going to see her as a bitch. She's really not. She's just an angsty teenager who kind of comes out of it pretty early into the film when she starts talking to her brother. She's not really all that bad. She's not some kid that you just can't stand. Obviously there's plenty of people who seem to be that way, but I don't know. I guess they're just not dealing with teenage girls very much. But yeah, that pool scene is one of my favorite scenes of the entire year. So for almost that scene alone, it had to make the 25 because I loved the whole pool sequence. Everything that happens when they get to the pool is fucking fantastic and one of my favorite scenes of 2018, period. Number 23, here's a film I feel will go up on multiple viewings, but for now, because I've only seen it once and because I went into it with no knowledge of it, I had no idea. Now, I watched the movie Resolution years ago, and while watching this movie, The Endless, I did not know that this was connected, which I feel like if you're a fan of their work, this is almost like a Split thing. I don't want to give spoilers for Split if you haven't seen it, but with the upcoming Glass movie, I think it's kind of already spoiled. But it's kind of one of those scenarios where if you hadn't seen someone's previous work, not knowing, you would be like, what the hell? But I had seen Resolution. It had been many years, so when I threw this on, I was like, wow, this is a really cool film. I'm really enjoying this. And then when the Resolution stuff happened, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. This is something I would love to go back, watch Resolution, then watch this. So if you have not seen Resolution, if you haven't seen The Endless, please watch Resolution first and then this. You can also watch The Spring, which is this same directors as well. Great talented guys. They write, they direct, they act, they star, the whole thing. They're amazing. I hope that this goes up huge on a second viewing, accompanied with resolution, so that I could see the entire story all as one. But I could barely even remember resolution. I was watching, I was like, isn't this that movie? Like when they get, so I don't want to talk much more about it, but watch those. Next up, number 22, we have Insidious, The Last Key. This is a franchise that's really just been solid for me. I've really enjoyed all 4 of these. So I'm not sure why a lot of people hate on the 3rd and the 4th, but I thought that they were really fine additions to this. And I really, really enjoyed the hell out of this. So I'm not going to talk too much about it. It's a franchise film. You guys probably know enough about it, but I really dug that Lynn Shane, a 70-plus-year-old woman who's been acting in fucking movies for decades, has become a leading role, a leading character in a popular horror movie franchise, which has yet another film in development right now. I heard that there was going to be a crossover with that and Sinister. Is that the one that I heard this was about? It wasn't The Conjuring, I don't think. No, it was Insidious and Sinister. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But for now, Insidious, the Last Key, good stuff. I really enjoyed it in theaters. Number 21, another hidden gem that I don't feel like many people saw. The cast is absolutely excellent, and that is Marrowbone. We have Anya Taylor-Joy and we have Mia Goth, 2 of my favorite horror actresses in the moment, who just do great work. We have other characters in this, actors that are excellent as well. But man, yes, I think that the biggest complaint that this movie would have is once the last act is starting to come or be revealed, I think a lot of people, well, this has been done before plenty of times. Yes, I agree with you. But if you're going to do something that's been done many, many times before, do it well. Okay? And this one does it very well. So I don't mind that it's something I've seen before because it's so well done. It's so well acted. It's so well shot. It's a really great movie, honestly. It's just, yeah, it's been played out, but if you've never seen a movie like that and you watch this one, you would be like, oh my God, this movie's awesome. I really enjoyed it. And anything with Anya and Mia is pretty much instantly going to be good to me. Now, number 20, my most controversial pick, because this is the most hated film of 2018 for the most part. And if you guys have watched my channel enough, I'm sure you won't be surprised what this is. I've defended the shit out of it. I've talked about it many, many times. I do not understand the hatred for this. I'm not going to get into some long freaking monologue about this on why I think everyone hates it and how wrong they are and whatever. You can call me crazy and you can think I have terrible taste in films, but I watched this before anyone did. I loved it, and when I saw everyone else hated it, I was shocked. And ever since, I just keep watching people talk about how horrendously awful it is, and I'm completely lost on that. I thought it was great, and that is The Open House. I don't get it. I do not get the hatred for this movie. Whatever. I'm not going to get into it any more than that. I thought the ending was fantastic. I don't know what people wanted. I've talked about it enough. I'm at my ends with it, but my wit's end with it. But I'm a supporter of this film. It has a 3.3 on IMDb. 99% of people I've seen talk about it hate it. But I have a few friends who are on board with me. Lee McCoy from Drum Dums, I'll give you a shout out because you're one of the only people I know that really enjoyed it like I did. So, and my buddy Keen Gross. Okay, and there was a few others as well. But I'm not going to name everyone right now. Just wanted to give a couple shout outs. All right, number 19 is another post-apocalyptic flick that I just thought had an incredible arc to it. Because Kate Bosworth's character was so unbelievably annoying in the first 20-30 minutes of this movie that I wanted her to die so badly, and then her character just started to kick serious ass, and all of a sudden I was a huge fan of her and wanted her to triumph, and this was The Domestics. If you missed this movie, really cool, post-apocalyptic, almost Mad Maxy, but no cars, just kind of that setting in a way. I really dug it. The last act of this movie I just thought was brutal and great. Another one I feel like people completely skipped past, and that's a shame because it's a cool flick. Hopefully it's on some streaming service now that you can check it out. I saw it a while back, not knowing anything about it, went in blind, really loved the hell out of it. So there you go, check it out. Number 18, probably my biggest disappointment of the year. I've still only seen it once, and I hope that it's coming to Blu-ray here on Tuesday, so really soon, and hopefully I love the shit out of it, and I'll be like, what was I thinking? I was crazy. I didn't hate it. It made my freaking 18th spot on my list, so it's not like I hated it. To be fair, I feel like if it wasn't this movie, okay, that's Halloween. I think people know what I'm getting at here. 2018's Halloween. There's some decisions here in this movie. There's a shocking moment in the movie that did not work for me in the slightest, and I felt like the last act of the movie with Laurie and all that was silly. I've gotten into it at length. I'm not going to talk about it on here. I don't want to get into spoilers, but I just thought, what? That's the plan? So, silly last act for me. There's a lot of great stuff going on in here. There really is. And as I said, I hope on a second viewing, a third viewing, an eighth viewing, I'll be watching this a lot. I'm a big Halloween fan, as you guys all know. I really look forward to the second viewing. But for right now, on first viewing, I was a little disappointed. But for a Halloween movie, the hype gets out of control. So I hope going back in the second time, I will be like, you're a fucking lunatic. What are you talking about? This movie's awesome. All right, next up, we have a Netflix original from the director of the Raid franchise, the Raid 1 and 2. I've talked about these films enough. They're amazing. If you're into martial arts films, you haven't seen the Raid, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But that is Gareth Evans' Apostle with Dan Stevens, which actually got my Best Actor award for the year. I thought he was excellent in this. A guy goes to try to find his sister who's been taken by this cult and is held ransom, and he goes there, infiltrates, pretending to be one of the cult members, and when he gets there, he realizes maybe their cult isn't so crazy. They are, but you'll see what I mean if you watch the movie. Movie's bizarre. It's out there. It's a movie that would definitely work better with multiple viewings, because towards the end you're kind of confused and you're like, what the hell's going on here? It's really cool though. I mean, it's well directed. That goes without saying. The director of this is just so talented. It's crazy. I look forward to whatever the hell the guy does. But yeah, you got to check it out. It's a weird flick though, but it gets pretty brutal, and man, there's some really, really like gut-wrenching scenes. There's some gnarly shit in here. Good flick. Number 16, a film that just creeped me out to no end. Holy shit, I watched this movie, it was eerie as all hell. It has almost no plot at all, so this is all style, very little substance. There's a little, if you want to break down what the meaning of the movie is and all this. But for the most part, this is just pure atmosphere and creepy imagery, and that is the movie Possum. A lot of people will find this boring, repetitive. I will completely understand where they're coming from, but for some reason, it just kept creeping me out the whole time. It felt like a nightmare. I felt like I was sitting and watching somebody's nightmare unfold. It's hard to give a plot synopsis because there really isn't one. This guy has a puppet and he wants to get rid of it, and the puppet is creepy, and there's this dude that he lives with that's creepy. Everything about the movie is eerie and unsettling, and man, it worked well for me. I was a big fan of this movie, but as I said, there's very little plot. It's kind of repetitive, but the repetitive imagery just kept hitting for me, and it just kept building in its eeriness. So there you go, 16, Possum. Next up, we've got a found footage flick that's done in, it's done in like the 1960s. These guys go to a nunnery to investigate there's like bleeding statues. I forget what they call that, but whatever. These guys go to investigate it. They got an older priest there, and he's like, this is bullshit. I've done this a million times. We're going to find out how this is a hoax. And of course, as the film goes on, they start to understand this might not be a hoax. I just thought that this was a really cool flick, and that is called The Devil's Doorway. I really enjoyed this. I felt like the use of the found footage, faux documentary kind of thing here, just taking the footage to film it for the Vatican to see, to make sure that this is a hoax, or if it isn't, they got proof. The way that's all done, I just thought was great. It was very creepy. Stuff down in the basement was freaking me the fuck out. These guys are way stronger, cooler dudes than me because or dumber, I guess. I don't know. But when they looked down there, I was like, no way. There's no fucking way I would go down there. Whatever's going on down there, I don't want anything to do with it. I quit. I resign. I freaking throw away my religion. Whatever. I'm not going down there. So that shit really got me. All right, next up, we've got another Shudder exclusive here. This is an Asian flick. It is called The Mimic. And this is, I don't want to say too much about it, but I will say that it is a creature that can mimic people. Almost a la The Thing, although we don't have like crazy great special effects in that way, and there's no like huge transformations or anything. But you don't know what's going on. You don't know who's what. This couple, they find a kid and they bring it into their house and they start to suspect there's something up with this kid. I thought it was great. The family drama all worked well for me. If you'll see on my channel, anything with family drama inserted into it, oh, I love it. Family drama and horror works so well for me. It always emotionally works. All right, next up, number 13, another family drama horror flick for me, is The Clove Hitch Killer. What a fantastic performance that we got here from the dad. Really, really enjoy the hell out of this movie. This kid starts to suspect that his father might be this clove hitch killer that retired 10 years ago. He starts to find evidence and goes to confront his father about this. And the events that unfold for me worked so well because there's a moment in this that was shocking. I did not see it coming in the slightest. And man, the way the film plays out from that moment on, it kind of recycles itself and goes back. I just thought it was great. Oh man, I really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I did like a 50 freaking minute spoiler discussion with the mother of my children on that movie. So we talked way too long. There was a bunch of people complaining. It got like the most dislikes of any fucking video I've ever done. Holy shit. I'm sure this one will too, because this is going forever as well. But hey, I'm trying to do a proper year-end list here. I've watched 150 movies. It ain't gonna be no 5-minute quick edit fucking fast talking bullshit like a bunch of people's lists. Not knocking them, but I watched lists and I'm just like, there's no heart, there's no love for this. There's no, I don't know. It drives me crazy when I see those people do their list in like 10 seconds. It's like, did you even watch any movies this year? All right, number 12 is this is the film that I was saying that people are like, well, how can you say this isn't horror when you say that this is? Because this movie is another Shudder exclusive. It's called Cold Hell. It's a foreign flick. It kind of plays out with like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The reason that I consider this horror is because this is a very heavy focus on a serial killer and his hunting of this girl who witnesses him killing. So there's this taxi driver who is this female character. She very much reminds me of Noomi Rapace in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo films, and she is badass, man. She's like some Thai boxer. She's not a damsel in distress in this movie. She's kick-ass. It has one of the most satisfying endings. It's just a kick-ass movie. She's awesome. The way the film plays out, the detective stuff, a lot of family drama going on there. There you go again. I love family drama. I really bought into all of it. Kick-ass movie. If you're into the Girl with Dragon Tattoo stuff, I really heavily recommend this one. All right, number 11. This is a film that probably has one of my favorite theater experiences ever because of the theater experience I had with it. And you have to have a great theater experience, and you have to see this in the theater for it to fully work, because I did watch it a second time. And at home, this is why it's lower on my list. It was higher when it was just my theater experience. I almost wish I didn't watch it again because it would have been higher, but I want to be honest about it. I did watch it a second time. It takes away from it at home. The theater experience really helped this movie, and that was A Quiet Place. Talk about a quiet place. The theater I was in was a quiet place. No one was eating. No one was breathing. No one was making any noise. I felt like I could hear people blinking. That's how fucking quiet it was in my theater. And every single noise that the family made in the movie, anything, was like, ooh, They made a noise. Oh shit. Like, don't do that. Oh man, it really worked so well in the theater. I watched it at home. I was watching it with someone who really wasn't into it. And, you know, she was playing on her cell phone at points. And this is not that kind of movie, really. And I was just not into it as much, probably because of her, because the lights were on, because there was noise going on in the house. This needs to be experienced in the quietest conditions possible with people who are also really into it. And you're breathing in sync, and you're just like trying to not make any noise. And if anything happened in the house, you'd probably shit your pants. It's such an amazing freshman effort from John Krasinski here, and Emily Blunt is amazing in this film. Her performance, especially that birth scene, all that stuff. You could say it's ridiculous all you want, but it's great acting. It's a tense moment. Really cool flick. All right, moving on. Top 10, people. All right. Top 10 got my best soundtrack of the year because I'm a huge sucker for synth 80s soundtracks, and that is yet another Shudder exclusive at the moment, although you can rent this other places, but it is on Shudder. I don't think it's an exclusive, but it is on Shudder, and that is Summer of '84. This is such a cool, nostalgic throwback flick. Yes, we've gotten a lot of that lately with Stranger Things and It and other stuff, but I really like this. I thought it captured, I loved it actually. It really captured the 80s so well. And man, this has one chilling, haunting ending that really leaves things like, oh man, fuck, that sucked. The last like 10 minutes of this movie, I will question the parents in this. What the hell were they doing? But that's typical for horror movies of the 80s. You're always like, where the hell are the parents? The parents always seem to be absent. And this is one of those movies that I felt like, Jesus, they really were. But all right, if you haven't seen it, great flick. If you're into that 80s throwback, you know, it very much feels like a Stranger Things or an It, because it focuses on like teenagers in the 80s. And they're investigating this neighbor. One of the kids thinks he's the killer. That almost, you know, Clove Hitch in that way, where he suspects he's the killer and his friends don't believe him, and he's trying to prove he is. He's a cop in town. Cool flick. Check it out if you haven't seen it for some reason. All right, number 9, probably the best slasher movie of the year. Although I guess, yeah, with my list, this is the best slasher movie of the year. I blew this movie. The director used my review as his opening review of his collage of reviews. That was one of the coolest things to happen. I got to meet him at the horror festival I went to, Mad Monster Party. And that is Terrifier with Art the Clown. Now, this is a movie that a lot of people didn't like because they just thought it was gratuitous and that the sawing scene went too far. No way. No way. I just did a spoiler discussion for Slasher Sunday on this. I went full into depth. Love this flick. Super fun. Great soundtrack. Art the Clown is amazing. One of the best iconic slasher villains of years and years to come. So, awesome stuff. I look forward to heavily for the sequel. And if for some reason you haven't seen All Hallows Eve, which is his first appearance, check that out as well. I really like Damon Leone's stuff. But yeah, really fun flick. Not much in substance. It's all slasher. So it could have been higher if there was more to characters, but I did like a lot of what I got, so it had to make it high on my list. So there you go. Big slasher fanatic. So it had to make the top 10. All right, number 8. Now, there was a Suspiria remake this year, and while I did love it, the style of that movie was nothing like Dario Argento's Suspiria. Nothing at all. I'm a big fan of Giallo's. I am a big fan of the style of Suspiria because I love neons, the bright neon pinks and reds and blues and magentas and all that stuff. I love, love, love the color palette of those old Giallo films, namely Suspiria. And stylistically, we got a remake of Suspiria this year. As I said, Suspiria, the remake that we did get, it is not stylistically at all, which is great. It shouldn't have been. But this is a movie that almost everyone missed. It is called Bloody Ballet, aka Phantasma. I loved this movie. But as I said, this is a film for Giallo fans. If you're big into Giallos and you love stuff like The Editor, which was a great homage to giallos of the past, excellent movie, highly recommend that. Or maybe like a Mare, however you say that. I wasn't crazy about that movie, but the style was on point. There's other ones, but this is one of the best. It's very low budget, but man, I thought this guy nailed it. I loved this movie, and I really heavily look forward to them releasing a Blu-ray if they ever do. Right now it's DVD. I ain't getting a DVD. I want the Blu-ray. Phantasm Bloody Ballet. All right, number 7. Another zombie movie that really played with conventions here and tried something new, and it really worked for me. This was a Netflix original that I completely passed by many times because a lot of people didn't care for it. And then when I was wrapping up the end of the year, I threw this on, and this movie is called Ravenous. No, not the Guy Pearce flick. This is a zombie flick where the plot synopsis really is just these people are trying to get away from the zombies, the infected. But what's cool about these zombies is these zombies seem to have some form of human in them, and they all just stop and kind of just stare, and they build these structures out of furniture that they all kind of just sit there and almost worship. And then oh man, there's such creepy, effective ass scenes in this flick. I loved it. Obviously everything in my top 10 I loved, but for a zombie flick, this was my favorite. This was one of my favorite zombie films of the year. A little more dramatic, but it's never slow paced for me. It never ever was boring or had any lulls in the slightest for me. It just moved along so well. All right, number 6 is a film I just mentioned a couple movies ago here, and that is the Suspiria remake. This is a movie that I will admit is very slow, very long. It could use some tightening here and there, but where certain parts were too slow, maybe a little bit, all the stuff that worked for me in this worked so damn well. I just loved what I got. There's so many really cool sequences in this of ballet dancing. Hey, they actually put some ballet dancing in here. Some of the greatest kills are in this. The whole ending sequence is just absolutely nuts. It's a beautiful film. Yes, it's long. Yes, it's slow. There's going to be people who hate it. They call it pretentious, this and that. I understand. But I saw this in theaters, and I was just captivated the entire time, even though there were moments where I was like, all right, this is a little slow, but I was still super into it, and I really look forward to multiple viewings in the future. Great remake of a classic. All right, number 5, probably the funnest movie I saw this year in the theater. And this is a movie that I was heavily looking forward to. I thought that this might have the best opening in all of films this year, and that is Overlord. Holy shit, what a fun World War II zombie flick. Although I don't want people to go into this expecting tons of zombie versus World War II soldier action. There isn't a ton of that, but the characters were great. The film looked amazing. The story was pretty cool. The whole film just played out like a thrill ride. As I said, that opening 10-15 minutes theater experience, another fantastic theater experience. My heart, my soul, everything was rumbling. They made me feel like I was in World War II. So fantastic stuff. Can't say good enough about it. All right, number 4. This is a Shudder exclusive as well, and this was one of the freaking freakiest movies I watched this year. I was glued to the screen from freaking scene 1 to scene end. A buddy of mine found this movie to be very confusing. I didn't find this movie confusing at all. I thought it was excellent. I did a full spoiler discussion on a podcast that I guested on called Beyond the Void. Good podcast from a buddy, Alex King there. Check his podcast out. I guested on there, and we talked about that and Aramentari, which I was not a big fan of. But I loved this movie, and I blew it for like an hour on there. A ghosty type movie, but man, it does everything well. It does everything perfectly for me. The only issue I had with this movie is some dodgy CGI, but outside of that, I thought the thing was damn near pitch perfect. I gave it like a 9.5 out of 10. Excellent movie. Number 3, here we go. Top 3, people. Only took 50 fucking minutes to get here. But number 3, we have the This is sci-fi for sure, but lots and lots of horror, and probably has one of the freakiest freaking creatures ever on film to me. Alex Garland kills it again. Annihilation. What a fantastic flick. Something I really heavily look forward to checking out again. I've only seen it once. I do own the Blu-ray, which I picked up on Black Friday for like $7. Man, I just thought this movie was beautiful. I thought the performances were all excellent. I thought the creativity on screen is what really sold this film for me. All the blending of different, freaking flowers and plants turning into all these different species, and they're like mixing of species. Awesome stuff. That bear sequence, that fucking bear is so scary, guys. I was in the theater seeing this, and I was freaked out when that bear was on screen. I was like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? What is it doing? What's that noise? Oh, man, it was freaky. Great flick. Natalie Portman, freaking awesome. Jennifer Jason Leigh, huge crush of my life. Just so good. Oscar Isaac, Poe Dameron himself. Loved it. All right, top two. The top two will be of no surprise to anybody. But number two, a movie that blew me away on my first viewing. I saw it again, blew me away again. This is Netflix's The Ritual. Holy shit. I love this film. I did a full spoiler discussion Monster Monday on this movie, broke down everything about the flick, watched it at midnight when it was released on Netflix, knew nothing about it, and was just riveted. Just fucking like in it from second one, man. I was in this journey with these guys, more like almost family. It's friend drama, but it's like, really close-knit friend drama. The monster, best creature design of the year. Absolutely unbelievable. What a fantastic movie. If you're into, Lost in the Woods, Blair Witch type stuff, it's not found footage, but for some reason you haven't seen this. An incredible monster movie, an incredible freaking drama, friend, stuff going on. Oh, so damn good. All right, number one will be no surprise to anybody. It's most people's number one. I hate to be obvious here, but I'm not going to not give my honest opinion here. I saw this in the theater. I've seen it since. Each time blew me away. The best performances of the year, the best everything. I can't say enough good about this movie. Hereditary. It's the best film of 2018 for me. It's, Toni Collette, best performance of the year. She doesn't get nominated for an Oscar. I don't even know what the fuck they're doing anymore. Whatever. The Oscars, whatever. It's nice if they do, but if they don't, I'll just look at it as like, wow, these guys really just hate horror. Whatever. I don't care. But I've said enough. I've said enough about this movie. I've talked about it all damn year. It's got the best everything in it. It's a perfect film, in my opinion. 10 out of 10. I can't find a fucking thing wrong with it outside of the last minute, but even that I've grown to enjoy because the heavy exposition I felt was completely unnecessary. I thought the audience was smart enough to get it for themselves. Clearly, the producers or whoever didn't think so they threw it in there. But outside of that, everything in this film is pitch perfect. Performances, the scares. It has the most shocking moment of the year. Because I didn't know what this movie was going into it. All I saw was a trailer. The trailer's fairly vague, but it sets it up like it's a completely different film than it is. Maybe that's why some people hated it. I don't know. This is the most split film of the year. Half the people who loved it, half the people hated it. It's one of those kinds of films. I feel like the best films start 50-50, and there's huge love, masterpiece, and then there's people who think it's like the biggest piece of shit they've ever seen. If Hereditary is the worst movie you saw in 2018, you're the luckiest motherfucker I know. Because holy shit, I saw some dog shit. The worst movie I saw this year, Death House. 10 times over. You guys know, I've talked about it, but there you go. Top number one worst movie of 2018. I don't like dogging movies out, but holy shit, a 0. I don't give zeros out very much. I will give credit to some little things here and there. No. A 0. It's a piece of shit on every single level. It shouldn't exist. It shouldn't even have been released. That's how bad it is. All right, guys. 2018 comes to a close. I'd love to see a top 10, top 25. We did talk about everyone's top 10 list on the podcast. That sent it in to us. thank you guys. It's been a great year. I look forward to 2019. I look forward to doing this again in 2019. I apologize for anybody who thinks that this is too damn long, but there's a lot of films here. I talked about almost 50 films, and it's a 50-minute video, so I gave each film like a minute. They deserve more than that, but as I said, I talked about each one of these films from like 7 to 25, 50 minutes on some of them. So I did give them a lot of love, but I had to give them a lot of love here. What a fantastic year. I look forward to 2019. I look forward to this channel and talking with you guys in 2019. Thank you for supporting the channel. As I said in the intro, please check out the Patreon. We have a bunch of new tier levels. I finally put tiers in there, so I hope that you guys check that out because I want to do this more. I love doing this. This is the thing that I love doing most in my life. Outside of, hanging out with my kids or something. This is what I love doing. So thank you guys for supporting this. And thank you to 2018 for kicking so much fucking ass. All right, guys.